No story on the Western frontier would be complete if it didn't talk about the impact black people made. And no Western should ever be shown without the inclusion of the black cowboy. In fact, if it wasn't for the black cowboy, our biggest reminder of those days would be totally forgotten. In the brief 40-year period that gave Americans the development of the West, many of the stories about the black cowboy will never be told. They've been lost in history forever. But like so many times in the building of this great nation, black contributions were never recorded, even though their achievements were inspiring. The saga of the black cowboy is yet another example, because we were there.
John Wayne wouldn't be nothing inside of it. They just didn't take our picture. No, John Wayne and Tim Hope, Durango Kid, and Gene Autry. Oh no, ain't nothing. We had horses do just what they do. So what? They just didn't put it in the paper. Yeah, they didn't put it in the paper. Oh, that ain't nothing but a show. There ain't nothing to it. Them boys couldn't stick with us. We'd make a monkey out of it. On the pitch shows back there when Durango and Roy Rogers and Tim Hope, all them were playing, you never seen a black cowboy there. I don't know whether they just didn't work them or what, but there was always black cowboys.
The black cowboy experienced less discrimination on the trail than in any other occupation open at the time, even though they were brought on to do the hardest work on the ranch and during the cattle drives. Life on the open range was more enjoyable, though, sleeping under the stars and judging each other as men first. Driving cattle up the trails to the market offered the black cowboy the chance to see and choose some remote areas to settle in, plus the possibility to own land and raise cattle. Black pioneers include cowboys, miners, lawmen, stagecoach drivers, saloon keepers, editors, and farmers.
Horse doesn't care what color you are, doesn't care how much money you got. A horse only cares of what's in your heart.
Easy.
We all grew up watching Roy Rogers.
Well, doggone it, boys and gals, it really is swell getting a chance to be here.
Gene Autry and all those guys, okay? But the thing is, we didn't see any black cowboys at the time.
The actual American cowboy that we know today is a culmination of West African heritage and the Spaniards, which the West Africans are herdsmen, and they're still herdsmen today. During the slave era, they were brought here for their herdsmanship. The herdsmen worked their cattle with dogs, sticks, and rocks, and whistling and sounds. And that culmination of those two people put together made the expert horseman. And every third cowboy back in that era was of either Spanish, Indian, or some African descent.
That's why they call cowboys. Back in those days, a white man would call you boy, even if you're like 100 years older than him. That's what he would call you boy. So that's why this cowboy come in there. And those the black cowboys, they'd be out on the range. We would do all the work. Whatever's supposed to be done out on the range, well, the black cowboy would do it.
But Hollywood would have you believe that there weren't anything but Anglo-Saxon cowboys. It's the rich, rich, rich heritage and history that has been not fairly documented.
Going into Chicago, I saw a sign that said, "Black Cowboy, the forgotten man of the West." And after doing research, I always thought when I was growing up, I didn't know anybody but the Long Ranger and Roy Rogers. And kids now are beginning to know the history, but we go to some shows back in the day, they let all the school kids out, and the little black kids would come up to you and feel you and take off running because they had never experienced black cowboys.
I grew up on a ranch. My dad was a cowboy. My grandfather was a cowboy, and his dad was a cowboy. I started rodeoing at the age of 15. I started going to rodeos, black rodeos. Then I wanted to go to white rodeos. When I was in the 70s, 71, I tried to enter some rodeos, and they wouldn't let me enter some of them because I was black. When you drive 100 miles to a rodeo and they tell you can't ride, and that kind of discourages you. You know, you want to quit.
Segregation, yeah, it was in the late 60s, 64. But in the rodeo, it was all the way up until almost the early 80s, and further than that, where you really seen segregation was still there.
I had a cousin named Tex Williams that kind of broke the color barrier for me. He was able to get into some rodeos that I couldn't get into. Even in the 70s, in 68, 69, I couldn't get in.
I was born and raised on a ranch, and all I knew was cattle and horses. After I got 13, 14, I started competing in amateur rodeos. Finally, they integrated high school rodeos, and I always wanted to go to one of the high school rodeos. For the people that we worked for, my dad would take the horses and stuff to these rodeos for the kids, and I would be there with him. And I would always wonder why I couldn't rodeo, and he told me that it just wasn't your time, you know. And so it just, I guess about 66, I made my first rodeo in Sinton. I was a little afraid. At every high school rodeo I went to except one, it was only one African-American, and that was me. In 66, I went to 5 high school rodeos, and I placed first in all 5. As far as being, I would say, the first black to do this, which I was in high school. I mean, I do know when integration was. There wasn't any black cowboys going to high school final. And up until I rode, not anyone made it.
I started off with the local rodeos, and I went professional. I got a permit in the Professional Rodeo Association. And I saw how the cowboys were getting, the black cowboys were getting treated. And I had a different avenue. I had going to college to Prairie View. I graduated in 1972. And what I did, I formed an association along with Meredith Dykeman called the All-American Rodeo Association. And this was an association where we had rodeos and gave scholarships away. And it quit somewhere around the mid-'80s.
It was just the tone of the environment at that time. It was just those people didn't necessarily want us to achieve or want us to be equal to them or feel equal to them. That was just the nature of the beast at that time. These gentlemen had the heart and the desire and the will to keep doing what they knew they had to do, what they were able to do, and no matter what, you couldn't suppress their skill and their ability and their willingness to achieve championship and to develop champions even in us. So they kept on driving no matter what.
They wanted to be a cowboy, and that's what they wanted to do, and they knew if they persevered, they would eventually be champions.
A lot of black cowboys never seen the dream that a black man would win a world championship. And in 1982, Charlie Sampson was the first professional black bull rider, and Fred Whitfield, he won 6 or 7 titles and an all-around title, so it wasn't all in vain.
We learned from those guys tenacity of our fathers and our forefathers of overcoming whatever adversity we had to still be championship cowboys no matter what, not let anybody hold us back. And champions in whatever you do, whether it's a cowboy or not. When you see these type of men and these men who endure this type of discrimination and people trying to hold them back, there's no excuse for us not to achieve in anything we do.
So it's just that simple. You got to want to do anything to do it. And if you want to do it and be good at it, you can do it.
A lot of them up north states, all that stuff. Wow, I ain't know any black cowboys around. You know that. You know what costume do you have on? You don't know. It's no costume. You know, we for real. It's a lot of them around, and it's more and more of them. You know, coming up. And a lot of them want to be saying like, you know, say, Mama, I want to be a cowboy. And that's the way it is. And I'm trying to help all the ages and all the generations, you know, to help to get their start.
If you didn't know any better, you would think, you know, oh, that's odd for a black guy to be a cowboy. And it wasn't odd in the least bit. Because like I say, out of all the cowboys, 1 out of every 4 was a black man. First guy killed in Dodge City, black man, got hit by a stray bullet. Only known he was buried under the name of Tex, because he was from Texas. 3/5 of the cowboys on the Chisholm Trail Drive, African-American cowboys. These are things, if you don't know, you know, they go on unseen, and then you'll have black people that believe that that's odd for us to do. No, it wasn't. And then you'll have white people that'll think, that's odd for them to do. No, it wasn't. And that's what this rodeo dispels, because people get an opportunity to come here, and they get a chance to see what they don't see often.
I was 3 years old when I knew I wanted to be a cowboy. Everything just came natural to me. When I hit the ground, I ran toward a horse. My dad was a cowboy, and his dad was a cowboy, and my uncles and cousins were cowboys, so everything I knew was cowboys. Give me a challenge.
The contribution has been absolutely opaque, deleted, and even our young ones haven't seen the real black cowboy.
When it was time to drive the cattle up from Texas to the northern meat markets, we were there. When the Broncos needed busting and the steers needed branding, we were there. When the sun was scorching and the snow was blinding on the long, hard trail, we were there. When the West was won, we were there. We roped them, rode them, broke them, drove them, and harnessed the power that was the West. Nearly 8,000 of us, black cowboys. We made our mark on American history in the West. The names of Wyatt Earp, Thad Masterson, Jesse James, Billy the Kid, and Wild Bill Hickok are etched in stone as great participants in the American West. But due to an unwritten historical oversight, well, those who helped shape that stone, their names were left out. I'd like to take this time to introduce you to just a few. Boss Ickard, born 1847, died 1929. Before the cross-country cattle cars took the beef to feed the North, cowboys led the large herds across the open plains of Texas, through New Mexico, and into Colorado. 4 trails northward became famous in Western history: the Chisholm, the Western, the Shawnee, and the Goodnight Loving Trail. Boss Ickard helped to blaze the Goodnight Loving Trail. Boss Ickard was born a slave in Mississippi in 1847. When he was old enough to handle a horse, his master began to hire him out to other ranchers. As the word spread about his skills as a roper, rider, wrangler, and all-around cowboy, he was soon working for some of the biggest cattle ranchers in the business. At the end of the Civil War, Boss Ickard joined ranchers Oliver Loving and Charles Goodnight in their attempt to blaze a new cattle trail northward. This route became known as the Goodnight Loving Trail. Boss Ickard rode the trail for 4 years, becoming Goodnight's most devoted right-hand man. His ability to take charge in any difficult situation was remarkable. Goodnight said, "Boss Ickard was my detective, banker, and everything else in Colorado, New Mexico, and the other wild country I was in. When we carried money, I gave it to Boss. I've trusted him further than any man." Boss Ickard never became rich, and he won no medals. But in the legends of Western cowboy history, Boss Ickard, remembered as one of the strongest and ablest cowboy of them all. Isam Dart, born 1849, died 1900. Ned Huddleston, better known as Isam Dart, was born a slave in Arkansas in 1849, the year of the gold rush. Ned Huddleston was an unusual man. He was a black cowboy whose skills as an all-around cowman were unexcelled, but he also operated on both sides of the law, one of the few black men who pursued such a dangerous profession. As a young boy, Ned worked as an orderly for his master and other Confederate officers during the Civil War. But with emancipation, he moved west into southern Texas and Mexico and worked as a rodeo clown. While in Mexico, he met a young Mexican and they formed a horse and cattle stealing partnership. After finding success as a horse and cattle thief, he decided to join a cattle drive. That took him to a place called Brown's Hole along the Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado borders, a haven for cattle thieves. Ned tried mining, but after being cheated out of his earnings, he joined the Tip Galt gang and renewed his horse thieving activities. Their escapades ended in misfortune in Wyoming when a ranch owner and his cowhands ambushed the gang, killing all but Ned. After that ordeal, Ned changed his name to Isam Dart. He moved to Oklahoma and ranched for several years. That didn't last too long because he returned to Brown's Hole and got a job with the Middlesex Land and Cattle Company. Isam soon left that to start another ranch, stocking it with stolen cattle. Isam Dart was arrested several times for rustling, but was never convicted for lack of proof. Western jurors were often quite lenient with persons who attempted to improve their condition through rustling, especially if it was directed against larger outfits. Because of unsympathetic jurors, the cattle barons frequently hired regulators or stock detectives. In other words, hired killers. Tom Horn, a famous regulator, showed up in Brown's Hole posing as a rancher and horse buyer. And on the morning of October 3rd, 1900, Isam Dart walked out of his cabin and met his death. Isam Dart tried to leave his criminal past several times, and each time he went back. Although Isam Dart was known as a rustler, those that knew him attested to the fact that he had no equal as an all-around cowboy and that he was respected and fair. A good man and always helpful were the final remarks made at his burial. Isam Dart, born 1849, died 1900. Nat Love, born 1854, died who knows when. Two reasons stand out that make Nat Love, alias Deadwood Dick, a major figure in the American frontier. The first one, he became a famous black cowboy, and the second is, in 1907, he published his autobiography entitled The Life and Adventures of Nat Love. Nat Love was born a slave in Tennessee in 1854. Because there were no schools for black children, Nat Love, at the age of 15, headed west to Kansas to become a cowboy. Nat soon arrived in the bustling town of Dodge and landed a $30 a month job as a cowpuncher. For more than a generation, he took part in the long drives that guided Texas beef to Kansas and points north. In Nat Love's 1907 autobiography, he wrote about his many adventures on the frontier. On July 4th, 1876, Nat Love entered the rodeo at Deadwood City in the Dakota Territory. He won several roping and shooting contests, and he reports, "Right there, the assembled crowd named me Deadwood Dick and proclaimed me champion roper of the western cattle country." This proud nickname and honor he carried for the rest of his life. To preserve it for posterity, he placed it in the subtitle of his autobiography. The wheels of progress finally caught up with Nat Love, alias Deadwood Dick, and most of the other cowboys. Now powerful locomotives whisked Texas beef to eastern consumers. Cowboy Nat Love left the range for a job on the railroad as a Pullman porter, the best type of position open to black men at the time. The cowboy life had been good to Nat Love. He had learned to speak Spanish in Arizona and to read cattle brands better than any cowboy in the West, and to become a champion roper, rider, and good all-around cowboy. Nat Love, alias Deadwood Dick, a black cowboy who without a doubt made and left his mark on the American western frontier. Bill Pickett, born 1860, died 1932. He was described as the greatest sweat and dirt cowhand that ever lived, bar none. Bill Pickett was born around 1860 near Taylor, Texas. His potential as a good cowhand was spotted early by one of the owners of the 101, a 100,000-acre ranch in Oklahoma. Bill worked on the ranch with 200 other cowboys, bronco busting, calf roping, handling a branding iron, and becoming a sure-shot marksman. And he was considered the best of them all. But what set him apart from the others was his ability with a horse and his peculiar form of bulldogging. In fact, he's credited with being the inventor of steer wrestling. His concept of steer wrestling was to ride alongside an animal, leap upon its back, then grab its horns and twist them until the steer raised its head. Then he would bite into the steer's lip with his teeth, throw his hands up, and just with his teeth drag the steer to the ground. He became famous as a rodeo star, and with the 101 Wild West shows, he traveled across the United States, Europe, the Western Hemisphere, and even Mexico, where he was billed as the Dusky Demon for wrestling a full-grown Spanish fighting bull hand-to-hand and winning. As a box office draw in rodeos, at home and abroad, his assistants at various times included Will Rogers and Tom Mix. Bill Pickett died on April 2nd, 1932, at the age of 71 on his own 160-acre ranch in Oklahoma. On December 9th, 1971, Bill Pickett was the first African American to be inducted into the National Rodeo Cowboy Hall of Fame. Bill Pickett, a black cowboy, born 1860, died 1932.
Growing up in Compton is pretty, it's pretty hit or miss. You take the good path or the bad path. A lot of kids wanted to be gangsters, but me, I wanted to be a cowboy.
I was once incarcerated. I did some bad things. The streets can consume your life if you allow it to. I got out and my best friend gave me a horse. That might have been a life-changing experience. It taught me responsibility and stay focused. If I didn't have a horse, I'd probably be dead.
My first horse actually growing up, had her for about 12, 13 years. A couple of years ago, she got hit by a SUV. That was the worst feeling of my life. Not just losing your pet, but losing, you know, your best friend.
When I'm on my horse, it's total freedom. I don't think about no problems. Just me and my baby, rolling in our own little peaceful bubble. Sometimes if I'm hungry, I'll ride through the drive-thru. Sometimes they even give me free food because they never really seen it before.
I have a lot of thoughts of anger, and I'll just go to the stables, and you know, I'll just pull my horse out and ride. And it seems like all my anger, frustration goes away.
When people think of Compton, they think of, you know, gang violence and destruction. Within those 10 square miles, you have at least 50 farms. You can literally peek over somebody's fence and see paradise. It's like a hidden world. If it wasn't for me and my friends taking care of these rescue horses, basically the throwaway horses people didn't want anymore, they'd end up in glue factories.
The urban black cowboys, we've been here for a long time. But the media, the movies, they just want to promote this thug life.
You wouldn't have never thought the horses were placed in the most corrupted neighborhoods.
I feel like the world should know about this environment, this neighborhood.
When people see us in the community riding 7, 10 deep, cars will literally stop, like I'm a movie star or something.
I've seen cops or the hardest gangsters, they always tend to loosen up.
The most thugged out people done came up to her and just melted. That whole gangbang life goes out the window.
It changes their mind frame. Like, he's not so much of a bad person. It brings peace and it brings a little bit less violence. When I rode that horse and I got all the reactions for a black person being on a horse, it just blew me away. That it's really peace out here.
A lot of people don't know this is here. You know, people come out here and they say, "Oh, I never had no idea. They had things like this in Brooklyn." You know.
There's a prairie wild and free, full of tumbling tumbleweeds, deep within a cowboy's heart.
I wouldn't want to be nothing else but a cowboy. You know what I mean? I used to be a truck driver. I drove a truck for a sugar house for 31 years. And I just retired and devoted all my time to my horses in the Federation of Black Cowboys.
And you are?
Bronco Bill. The Federation of Black Cowboys is the biggest organization in New York City.
Known worldwide, written in magazines.
They're hard-working men, some of them truck drivers and you name it, but they always take out time for their horses, you know? False turn. All right, get into them. Get it up. A lot of kids now, they don't know that it's black cowboys. You know, they think it's all white cowboys. Go around, do it from the right, then the left. Take it easy, go slow. You never know what it's like being a cowboy until you try.
There's an open sky above, and the gal he's thinking of, deep within a cowboy's heart.
This is my life.
Deep within a cowboy's heart.
Many years ago, there lived strong men who roamed the prairies of the land. They searched by day and watched by night to protect their cattle the best they can. They fought side by side. Many of them died, but nobody never told me there were black cowboys. That was yesterday, but this is what's happening today. There's still many hard-riding black cowboys. They fought side by side. and many of them died. Yet nobody ever told me there were black cowboys. But history made it show that the whole world needs to know it's still many hard-riding black cowboys.
You say you love me.
My dad started this ranch back in 1947, and we raised cotton and corn. We had a bunch of mules and horses out here, and all the kids was right here helping us pick peas and stuff. And after my dad passed, well, I decided to start a rodeo going, and because there wasn't no opportunity for no black cowboys around in this area, so I decided to start a rodeo going for the young black cowboys. It's a great opportunity as of right now.
You know, back in the time when AJ and I was competing, it was pretty hard then. We had to get ourselves adjusted. We would walk behind the bucking gates where they wouldn't let us go in the front. Guys would see us coming, white guy, and they'll spit just right in front of us, the spit fly on us, or either they'll cross over to getting off the gate back rail and their feet will hit us, and you know, they'll probably laugh and say, excuse me, but they done it on purpose. So we just kept on going, but we hung in there because we knew it was something good by them not wanting us there, so we just stayed there.
I built this rodeo pen by hand, and it was an old tradition, and it's an old place, and I'd like to keep it like that because it's just common to the people out here by being at an old place. Most of the people come from around here from Louisiana. They most out of Louisiana, and they settle down here in Texas, and they still love that old tradition about the old gumbo, the crawfish balls, and the gumbo, hot gumbo, and dancing and having a good time with the zydeco music. They love that.
Coming around these rodeos, these country rodeos, and it's a lot of fun. You meet all the people that come here, and they're just like, when we all get together, just like one big happy family. And then they bring their kids out, which most parents done told their kids about the older cowboys like me and AJ done rodeo before, and they just come out here and see what kind of guy we are, how we act, how we perform us. And we do our performance and teach the younger guys how to perform, the young girls how to run barrel races, and just go to one of these old down-the-road country rodeo, and it's just like a one big happy family. We enjoy it.
Yeah, that bay horse out there. Yeah. He working pretty good, you know. He working. I look at him earlier. He works real good. Yeah, I just want to work real rope now. I didn't sit on to your bike. I looked at him. That horse, he worked pretty good. Last week I was in Macbeth.
When I first started out rodeoing, it was kind of hard. And most time with the white folks shorten our scores, give us the worst bull, worst bucking horses. And then we had to ride after everybody was dismissed from the rodeo, so that means nobody else didn't see us until it was over. They called it the slack, but we didn't go in the slack, we just went with nobody else. Then sometime they would shorten our scores and then give us a shortage of the stick. Yeah. But in those days, it was just that way in those days. So we had to compete with it the best we could. And then what happened, that I met this guy here, A.J. Walker, a black man that having his own place, made a great contribution to us because we was able to come here and rodeo. Although he had white guys was coming here, but he wasn't segregated against them. Yeah. But they came here and rodeo with us, and he brought a great light to the society of the African American black cowboys when he built this place here. So this is what we continue on to do. And since I've been coming here, it's been like, hey, up in the sky. He did a great thing for the black cowgirls and black cowboy. Also, he did a great thing for me because he and I rodeoed together out there when we was denied to a lot of places and allowed to another place that we couldn't go. They didn't allow us to go there. And it wasn't an idea that they didn't want us there. Then yes, it was an idea they didn't want us there, but the idea was they didn't want us to win. That was the idea. They didn't want to put us with us, but the idea of putting us with us, they would make sure that we wasn't going to win because the white man had the pencil to do our judging, which is shorten our scores. So when he got this place here, hey, it was like a piece of cake.
There you go. Wayne Blanford. Stay on your feet, cowboy. Whoa, looky here. Stay on your feet, cowboy. Boom, bumps him down to the ground and rolls him over. Wayne Blanford. There he goes. Looky here, looky here, looky here. Cowboy nodded his head right up to him, Mike. Whoa, looky here. Almost had it, but he lost it. There you go, triple kills. Stay on your pony. Whoa, looky here, looky here. And that cowboy rocked the pony. Rock on him there. Coming out of seat number 3. There you go. There's John Hoover District. Stay on your horse. Go ahead. Stay on him, Steve. Looky here, looky here. Albert Frank. Stay on your horse, son. Looky here, looky here. Bareback rider, Albert Frank. Whoa, stay on your pony. Whoa, here. Somebody help him. Somebody help him. All right. Looky here, looky here. All right. That cowboy so tough they didn't want to let him out there to hurt the horse. Coming out of seat number 4. Looky here, looky here, looky here. Kick your pony. Look at that cowboy ride. Don't call him a cowboy till you see him ride. All right.
All right, the type of spur that I'm making is a bull riding spur. This spur is designed to catch a hold of the bull. Okay, the spur has a 45-degree shank on it, which is about 3 inches long, with a rod that goes in the end of it. And right here we have the straps that, to hold the spurs onto your boots, and you got another peg on the back that goes around the bottom of the boot to hold the spur to the bottom of the boot. And what I'm doing now is I'm going around the strap that goes on the bottom of the boot to get it rounded off to where it fits just perfect, and the spurs go, it fit fairly tight and snug on the boot. You just got to get them rounded perfectly as the way your strap won't come off. Get enough lip up under here as where the spur won't slip over during the ride.
German right call. There you go. Down you throw it. Looky here, looky here. Looky here. German right call. Rock you throw it, cowboy. Rock you throw it. Looky here. Woo! All right. How about a big round of applause for the cowboy? What's that
Ride no pink and lead no ball. Going up in the mountain, won't be back till fall. Yippee-yi-yi-yi, yippee-yi-yi-yi, yippee-yi-yi, yippee-yippee-yi-yi-yi, ta-yi, yippee-yippee-yi-yi-yi, yippee-ta-yi, yippee-yippee-yi.
Cleveland played that harmonica, boy, and I mean, it was real fun, music. And this is how we used to be on the range, riding. And we'd ship cattle from Old Cottonwood to Port Bolivar, and just all over and stay overnight. And then we just drive cattle all day and rest at night. And this is what we do for a living at one time. And they'd play this music. They had their old harmonica and they just blow it and just bring noise. I'm telling you, till 11, 12 o'clock at night. And we'd really enjoy ourselves, and that's how we'd pass off our time, having fun. And that's the only fun we had then. It wasn't no other music, no TV, no nothing. It's just the only way we had. And tell jokes about stories and just lie about one thing to another from cant to cant, and then we'd end up laying on our back, take our saddle and put them down in the pads. Then we'd lay down on that and sleep till daylight. And this is what we do for a living all the time, and it never was no big thing, but making about like $1 a day. And this is what we did. They'd bring us food there, and they'd cook, and we'd eat, and drank water, no soda water, just water. They had all that fancy stuff they got now. And it was just tough life when I come along. And I imagine it was tougher when my daddy come along. I can imagine when his grandpa, my great-grandpa was coming along, it probably was tough then. I know it was tough.
What we're doing right now is just getting my girl saddled up. This is Tess. And one of the things I like to do with my horses, out of respect for them, is prepare them for each thing that I'm about to do. So it's a whole process. And these straps and buckles, and this is called a rear cinch, which is basically designed, I think ropers came up with it, the idea, because when they dally, the back of the saddle would pop up, launch him forward. So they came up with this idea, helps hold the back of the saddle down in place. Less stress on the front of the horse and less stress on the cowboy or cowgirl. Now, what I was saying earlier about preparing the horse, I've seen people cinch their horses up real tight right away. I don't do it. I do it as a gradual process because the horse will hold its breath when you're cinching it. It takes a big breath and it expands itself. And then when you go out on trail or go out for your ride, tendency is the saddle will slip because the cinch opens up as the horse exhales and it's looser. The horse is pretty smart. So what I do is to keep the saddle from rolling and slipping is I do a gradual cinch. Like I'll set that up like that and I'll leave it. I'll continue to do the rest of the work around the horse, putting on the different cinches and breast collars, which is what I'm putting on now, the breast collar, which helps hold the saddle in place so it doesn't slip forward when going up or down a hill. Helps keep the relationship of the saddle on the horse in its most optimum and comfortable place. So what I'll do is I'll continue to do that kind of work. Well, she can't hold her breath for so long, so she'll exhale in a little while, and then I can cinch her up a little bit more without putting any stress on her at all. What I'm doing right now is I'm putting on my splint boots. The reason I always recommend that people use splint boots on their horses because this area here, there's a lot of tendons. And if you look at the horse, the way it's put together, it's very interesting. This is a very big and heavy animal, and it supports itself on these little tiny bits of legs. So, like you would with a wristband or anything that you would use to protect the tendons, we put splint boots on our horses. That way it gives them a lot of support and helps from bowing those tendons, which is then a real problem for that horse.
I live in Harlem, New York. With my cowboy life, it was something different. I got a lot of long stories about coming up as a cowboy. And I joined the Federation of Cowboys about 20-some years ago. And I've been in New York going on 48 years. I'm for real.
Uncle Ben was the only black cowboy to come to do the rodeo in Madison Square Garden. I was there with the Cub Scouts, and that was one of the rodeos that made me want to be a cowboy.
Our goal as an organization is to educate the inner city youth about the legacy of the African American of the Old West. A vision for the future of the organization would be to find a home where we could have horses here and continue to do what we're doing and to recruit young people who we could pass the reins on to. Because while our mission is to educate and keep alive the legacy of the African American of the Old West, we utilize that medium to do other things for inner city children, to get them out the streets. I would hope that people would support small organizations such as ours in trying to do their part of keeping the history of America alive.
A black man on a horse,
That's freedom. It's like a time we rise together.
Unity. One sound.
We used to buy rims and cars. Now we buying horses, trucks, and
Yeah.
trailers. We doing different things. We're not that same person. For me, that first horse unlocked the hold that the streets had on me, because I started spending a lot of time with the horses, riding every day, every day, every day. The more I spent with the horse, the less time I spent in the streets.
When she was born, I was the second person to touch her. It's my comfort place. It's where nothing else matters. We come from an era of drug dealing and getting in trouble with the police, the law, doing time, growing up, and that's all they know. All of my homeboys that's in this came from that. The horses took them just like it did me. It took them away from all the wrongdoing, man, and now it's just, it took off like a rocket.
People say you can't talk to them animals, but you can. Like when I'm going through a lot, I can just come to this horse lot. But they know I'm going through something. They just be at the gate. The streets got me for a little bit. And then when I got in trouble in the streets, I came back to the country life. Sometimes that's the best thing for you to do, is go where you started from. To let that passion go away, I didn't done that before and it didn't go nowhere. I went left. So to get it back and come back right, I'll never let it go again.
When I get on my horse, all my problems in the city, all the things that come with the city, they disappear for that moment. While I'm riding, it's just me and my horse, and it's a sensation. It's a sensation. Growing up was kind of hard because I was brought up in one of the roughest parts of Austin. It was a lot of doing without. Only strong survive. Go down there? All right. When I was little and I used to see the guys coming on the horses, I was so excited to be able to get close, to be able to get around that scene. And I know today, when kids see us, that same feeling. Gotta say, come on.
We're showing young kids that you can work hard for things and have things in life and still have fun.
When you want to stop her, you pull her forward, you pull back. You see how her head moves when you pull back? And when you want to go forward, you kick your heels on both sides. And you make the kissing noise. Can you do that? Let me see. There you go.
You sit them on the horse, and you walk them around. You're planting seeds. That's what you're doing. With these kids, and let them know, hey, it's different opportunities out here for different things. This is a way of life, and it has to be taught to them. If that torch don't get passed, that dies. So we're all holding that torch.
As I said at the beginning, the rodeo is the only reminder of the early West that we have left. And parts of the rodeo were invented by the black cowboys. You see, after the cattle drive was over, the black cowboy couldn't go into town for recreation like the white cowboys could. So they stayed outside of town and created their own. No brag, just fact.
No cowboy went riding along one dark and windy day. Right along the never heard he rolled all the way. If you want to ride forever, riding in the sky, ride along, black cowboy ride. Yippee-yi-oh, yippee-yi, ride along, black cowboy ride. The horse was shining black as sweat they rolled along the trail. Riding for a month or more, they haven't caught him, yeah, yeah, yeah. If you want to ride forever, riding in the sky, ride along, black cowboy ride. Yippee-oh, yippee-yay, ride